we realize that there's people spending more time on their phones. They're spending time online. They're shopping. They're looking around, whether they have money to spend or not, or they're not prepared to do that. People are looking. People are interested. People are shopping around, window shopping. So the key for me right now, my number one goal and my focus now is to make sure that we have content that is fresh, content that is exciting, entertaining, informative.
Welcome to the Winning E-commerce Experience Show. And now your host, Shahram Anver.
Guys, our guest today is the creator of an Australian-based e-commerce brand, Smithers Swimwear. Jake Smith, great to have you with us.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
What time is it over there? You're in Sydney, right?
Yeah, we're in Sydney, so it's just ticked past 10 p.m. at night here on Monday. So it's getting on, but
yeah,
I'm pumped.
I mean, that's part of the hustle of being an entrepreneur, hey?
Correct, 24/7, you never switch off, so.
I know, and it's, I mean, what's it like when you, how long have you been an entrepreneur right now?
Oh, to be honest with you, I've tried so many different things, so many different businesses from, social media marketing, through to swimwear, through to a bit of finance stuff as well that I used to do on the side. So look, I don't know, I'd put it down to at least the last sort of 5 to 7 years, but specifically with Smithers, with my swimwear business, just over 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I asked you this is because with everything that's happening around us, I think entrepreneurship is certainly becoming one of those things that more people are thinking about, right? Where especially online, where they want to, maybe they've got something that they can sell and the only way they can go online is. So what's your sort of experience been like in these last 2 years building a digital brand?
It's quite interesting. I think that the biggest thing that I've probably found is that, look, let's go back to the beginning. When I first launched the website and that moment that I went, live, mm-hmm. I thought, all of a sudden there's going to be eyes everywhere looking at the website. And, to be honest with you, I think there was crickets for the first few days. There was nothing. And I got to the point where I'm like, somebody like it, somebody love it, somebody hate it. I don't care. Just give me some sort of feedback. So, it's quite interesting to see the traffic sort of build over time. And, we've introduced a second collection of swimwear, but many of these visitors to the website haven't actually experienced or seen our initial first debut collection. So it's quite interesting to see people really taking a liking to some of our earlier stuff as well. So I think it's quite important to sort of keep that there because you don't know who they are. You don't know, what they're coming for. So yeah, it's been quite interesting.
And I mean, what would you say was the most important, feature about yourself that made you last 2 years? Because 2 years is actually a long time being an entrepreneur. So that's clearly a lot of mental strength involved, right? Like, what do you think it was for you?
Yeah, look, I think you have to have perseverance and dedication in this sort of thing. I mean, it really is. I mean, people talk about a labor of love and it's a passion and it's something that, it can't just be an idea that you sort of toy with. I think initially, maybe for some people it is, but you really have to, I think once you make a financial commitment, once you put in that devotion and dedication for all your time and resources and sacrifices that you make, it becomes something so important to you that you can't just let it go. You've come this far, so you sort of have to keep going. And I think the more success that you have over time, that gives you more motivation and it sort of fuels the tank up to sort of make you want to keep going.
And do you find that it's really important to look for those quick wins? I mean, some of the people I've spoken to always talk about how it can get very depressing if you're thinking about these really big targets and rather just focus on what you want to get done this week. Is that how you also think about it, or what keeps you going?
Yeah, look, for swimwear in particular, where it's quite, the product, it's seasonal, right? Mm-hmm. So I think in Australia, we're quite lucky in the sense that we really only have sort of 2 seasons. It's either winter or summer, and sometimes we get summer all year round. So we are quite lucky, but obviously the sales are very much focused in our sort of September, October, November, December, January timeframe. So the focus is very much on the Southern Hemisphere. And then, we're coming into our winter now. So my focus is obviously on the Northern Hemisphere. But again, times are very tough right now. People are in lockdown, people aren't going out, people aren't doing anything. So in terms of quick wins, I think definitely not. It's much more of a slow burn. I think
Right.
that's something that I've definitely learned over time.
That's a lot of golden advice there for everyone. And I guess it really comes down to that perseverance, right? It's like if makes me think of that song, Top Thumping. I get knocked down, you get up again. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just talking like entrepreneur to entrepreneur. I think we're in this sort of like lifestyle which gets very romanticized, but really it's quite different being in the trenches. So, but it's that's why it's so inspiring to hear from guys like you who persevered and like build something. So,
Well, that's
sorry, what was that?
no, I was going to say, I think you build that sort of resilience up over time. And, just talking about quick wins, I mean, sometimes you might have a sale and you might do very, very well out of that, but you can't sustain a sale forever, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have peaks and you have your troughs, but when you trough and you've got nothing, that's when you learn to really get creative and pull something from nothing. So that's the
Yeah.
interesting times.
So tell us. I mean, we've already talked a lot about that you started 2 years ago, and it's like your mental frame of mind that it was crickets and it was disappointing. But let's go back to that point. What made you start the brand? What did you have in your because it is sort of like your creation, right? So what was that inspiration started, and introduce us to Smithers.
Yeah, so Smithers it's a men's swimwear label. So for me, interesting. I used to live in the outback. I used to live in, regional, remote New South Wales, which is, if you picture it, Sydney's on the coast. Where I used to live was like a 7-hour drive west, right into the middle of Australia. So it was a town of 5,000 people. I finished school out there and I worked in the mines for a while. So a huge contrast to where I am now. So I live in Bondi Beach, and I had a long and winding journey to get here to Bondi, but I think one thing that I said to myself was, now that I'm here, there's no turning back. I really want to ground myself to the ocean, and the beaches here, we're so spoiled in Australia, but it's absolutely my happy place. That's something so important to me. So I decided, well, what's something that I can do that's really going to connect me to the water here? And it is a bit of a family involvement. So my mum was a fashion designer way back when. So, she has a bit of involvement as well. And my sister was actually a professional swimmer. So she swam at the Paralympics in Athens. So it's sort of swimming through the family veins, if you like. And I just thought, well, you know what? I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to work with fabrics and textures and colors and styles and cuts and patterns, which is completely different to what I was doing at the time, which was working in finance. So from the mines, from copper mines to finance to swimwear is quite extraordinary. But I haven't looked back. This is something that I'm so in love with and I'm so proud of. And I think it just keeps evolving into something that sometimes you have to pinch yourself. But I think, for me, it was really that raw connection to staying to the ocean. It's my happy place. And, Bondi is definitely home for me now.
I mean, that's I think one of those inspiring real stories, right? Because and I think this is a really big part of maybe something you missed in my earlier question. Because yes, it's perseverance, but it sounds like you've got a deeper reason to do what you do, and I think that's also a big part of giving you that perseverance. Would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think there's probably more reasons than just a financial thing, or trying to have these gains and these wins and sales and the entrepreneurial side of things. It's very much a lifestyle. It's a family thing now as well, which again, it's something else to keep you fueling and keep you going. So yeah, absolutely.
So I asked you this before we started recording, and then we realized that this is actually a great bit of conversation to have on the podcast. So let's talk about it. So tell us what your big goals and focuses are right now.
Yeah, look, I think particularly for Smithers and everybody with an online store right now, I think we realize that there's people spending more time on their phones. They're spending time online. They're shopping. They're looking around, whether they have money to spend or not, or they're not prepared to do that. People are looking. People are interested. People are shopping around, window shopping. So, the key for me right now, my number one goal and my focus now is to make sure that we have content that is fresh, content that is exciting, entertaining, informative, but across many different levels and variations. So if it's imagery, if it's video, if it's social media content, if it's blogging, it's kind of having a presence in multiple different platforms and places that people can pick up on. So I think it's very much about that right now.
And I'd like to really jump into that a little bit more. So why content specifically? What is I mean, just for people listening in thinking, that sounds interesting. I haven't thought about content as much as Jake seems to be. What's the motivation behind that?
I think when times are tough, or when, like I said, when before I sort of touched on, when you kind of have not much to work with, there's sort of not much happening. It gives you time to think, it gives you time to be creative, it gives you these opportunities, and I have a lot of time at the moment. I mean, it's like you said, it's 10 o'clock here now, and you sort of switch as an entrepreneur. So I think I do some of my best work when I have those nights when I'm waking up in the middle of it, and I think, well, you know what, I'm going to write that down, I'm going to start working on this. And I think content for me allows me to be creative. So yes, I've just created a recent collection of swimwear, but I think it's about extending upon that creativity of the swimwear, the product itself, and allowing that creative sort of freedom to flow through into words and imagery and video and whatnot. And, you know, that's part of the bigger brand picture for me.
Right. And I guess there's that part of brand building, which you alluded to there, right? Because when you do good content, you're finding ways to engage with the audience and build them, versus just saying, hey, I've got something to sell. So obviously they get to know you, and then maybe they feel comfortable with trusting you with, making their next swimwear purchase.
Yeah, correct. I mean, it's one, sales is obviously important. I mean, that's what we're here for. We want to make money, but I think it's beyond that as well. You know, we've started to really build a community and foster a community that, everybody's starting to talk. A lot of people know each other on social media, and we have different networks and outlets where people have these conversations. And it's a place that people can sort of gather and talk and whatnot. So it's much more than just sales. I mean, once this pandemic is over and we're sort of out of the woods and into the light, that's having these times now where it is this sort of community-based place, whether it is content and whatnot. It's a memory. You're sort of burning your brand in people's brains to visit and come back to, and think, you know what, I actually really had fun. I really enjoyed that content. They're not just a sales heavy online store. They're actually got a lot more to offer than that. And I think that's what people really resonate with.
Yeah. I mean, personally, like this podcast itself is another example of that, right? Like for me, part of the reason I started DataQ was because I wanted to help more small businesses make better use of their data. And what better way for me to connect with the community than just to talk about how they build their businesses? Because, for me, it's like always been the case that small businesses tend to have much more interesting stories than your big mega corporations. It's just how it is. And I love hearing about it. And I'm sure a lot of people do too.
Yeah, you know what? I think over time, initially I set out and I really wanted to sort of separate myself from the brand. I just wanted to have Smithers Swimwear. Mm-hmm. And I kind of was happy to play that role and hide behind the curtain, behind the scenes of it all. And I think as time's gotten on, people relate with transparency. They want to see the people. They want to see, the mechanics and the nuts and bolts behind everything. And I'm actually starting to enjoy it. I'm starting to sort of, I guess, come out to my audience more and be more chatty and sign off as, Jake and not Smithers Swimwear. And it's actually been a lot of fun. And I think, like I said, when you can resonate with people who connect with you more than just a brand, you're actually a human being behind the other side. I think that's a really special thing.
Yeah. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit, because we're really talking here about building a better experience, right, for your customers. It's like, yes, sales is your say, financial goal, but there's so much more to it when you're building a brand. So what have you tried so far to give your customers a better experience?
I think, looking at the website, I have a lot on there. I try to keep abreast of a lot of things going on. I like to have that omni-channel presence across multiple different platforms. So, we have Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram is obviously a big one as well. And, where we have a different sort of a tone and a different approach across each of those different platforms. And I think it's important to do that because not everybody's on all the same social media platforms. Some people just subscribe to our emails, for example. So I think it's important to have all those digital touch points and have that presence and just knowing, okay, this is the tone that I approach with Twitter, which is completely different to, say, Instagram, which is a lot more visual, for example. So I guess that the experience that we're trying to offer is not bombard or overload with content. I mean, it feels like that from this end because we're peddling out a lot of content, but it's different for each platform. And I think that's quite exciting for us because, like I said, there's people from different channels or age groups or ethnicities and sexualities and whatnot that all see what they like in the brand. And I think that's something great that we've been able to create. And I think we have to learn from this and
Sure.
really adapt from, these different platforms.
I mean, when I heard you say that, I was thinking, wow, that sounds like a lot of work because, I think what you said, I think is really worth repeating because like one of the most like clear advice you get when you're talking about a marketing channel is to respect the channel, right? Like I think you get a lot of like cookie cutter approaches where you want to say the same thing on multiple channels and things like that. Whereas here you're really talking about, look, each channel is different. So I'm engaging with my audience in each channel in a very different way. Now that sounds like a lot of work. So tell us about, because this doesn't sound like something that was born overnight, right? Like I'm assuming that you experimented and you went into it and you've clearly arrived at something that's working for you. So just talk us through it because maybe there are people here who are listening thinking, wow, that sounds like a lot. Like what should I be doing this too?
Yeah, I think for Smithers, obviously, and a lot of other businesses would set out with their particular muse in mind. So, that's your ideal target audience or whatnot. And I think I set out with a target in mind. And then it's amazing. I'm like, okay, well, there's different age groups. I was sort of hoping to appeal to that sort of mature, maybe 30 to 50 and above audience who are, willing to pay for a premium brand, who understand fashion and quality and appreciate those sorts of things. And over time, it's amazing to see the different age groups really picking up on the products and what they like. And you have to adapt to that. And you'll see that when I show the website in the collection, like particularly in some of the colors and some of the shapes and the patterns that we've used, it's a transformation. So maybe what you set out with your intentions are going to change and move and grow over time. And you need to be able to adapt and be agile and sort of work with that. And that means across social media as well. I mean, you're going to have your different demographics on different platforms. So understand who your audience is and make sure you're using the tone of voice and specific language for that audience. And you can pick these things up on too. Like, I mean, looking at your analytics and stuff on Twitter analytics or Facebook analytics and Instagram as well. And you need to work out where your audience is, the age, their gender or whatnot, and really tune in and focus and listen to a lot of the analytics that are throwing up at you.
How do you listen? Because analytics only gets you so far, right? It gives you numbers. And I think with Facebook, you do get some demographics. But what you're talking about is a very deep level of understanding, which doesn't sound like you got it just by looking at the analytics. Did you talk to these folks or like what? I mean, it sounds like a lot of qualitative feedback too, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. There is a lot of quantitative feedback. And I think the qualified feedback, if you like, comes through having those conversations with your customers. Yes, that means replying to the DMs. Yes, it means being on Messenger. Yes, it means replying to tweets and answering emails. And I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. When you first start out as an entrepreneur, you're wearing 50 different hats. You're customer service, you're logistics, you're the accountant, you're in finance, you're the designer, you're all those things. So
And you're
that's
doing
kind of the
podcasts at
beauty.
10 p.m. on a Monday.
Exactly right. So you kind of are everywhere. You really do feel where people are coming from all these different angles. So you are able to pick up those things. And you have to put the time and effort in. I mean, these guys are taking the time out of, their day or whatever to visit your website or send you a message or ask you questions. And I think you need to treat that with respect and, go to them and give them your time and not always think that you're going to expect a sale or something. Don't have any expectations in a conversation with someone. Just let it flow and let it develop and it will come over time, but just be that person there for them.
So I think this is a great point, Jake, to jump into the website. I think we've salivated the audience. I think let's say the audience is probably salivating right now thinking, gee, like this sounds awesome. I want to see what he's got. So let's get into it. No pressure, by the way.
All right, let's see. I'll share the screen, okay?
Sure. So talk us through again, like on, I think you mentioned how you got to know your audience really well. So maybe like before you start, just give us like a quick spiel on what your design sense was, like, your assumptions on who your customer was and what were you trying to achieve. And then it would be great to just have a look and see like how did that manifest?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So the website that you're about to see is completely different to when I first set out in terms of like the whole aesthetic. The color is completely different. A lot of the imagery is totally different. You'll see the age of the model in this particular campaign, this recent collection that we're using, is a lot younger. So the colors are brighter to sort of reflect, I guess, our audience and our customer base at the moment. So that's one thing that I think will be a big pickup. But I think it's probably hard to sort of contrast that against what I did have. But I'll show you some photos if I can in the gallery. You'll be able to see the difference in aesthetic and what I'm talking about when we get there. But yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. You see the homepage?
Yes.
Okay.
Very clean.
Yes. So let's just start with the top, and then I'll just work my way down. So straight up, you can see this message at the top. It's yellow. It's very short. It's very to the point. It's very punchy. So I talked before about being able to connect, and when people are sort of reading an email or whatnot, they can actually, once they bounce through or click through to your website, they can pick up where they've left off in your email. So this yellow is used in a lot of our email campaigns, just so it's bright and obvious and out there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I guess, the first point. And also bear in mind, you've got to be optimized for mobile too. So what we're seeing here is basically identical to what you'll see, but obviously smaller on a mobile screen. So I guess the top menu bar, pretty standard, pretty basic. There's quite a lot there. But again, you'll see in that hamburger bar, which most people visit through mobile. So it's sort of scrunched up in a little nest. Let's move on. So this header image, the hero image here across the top, I think it shows the product there. It's quite obvious. It's right near our name. Nobody's going to miss that. And it obviously ties in with one of the products here in our carousel. So this range that you're seeing here, it's called the rhythm range. So the idea behind the rhythm range is that people feel the difference. And when I say feel the difference, I mean feel the difference in the fabric and the quality and the designs and whatnot, but also feel that body confidence as well. It's much more than just the product, as we spoke about. It's kind of it's a bit of a movement. It's a bit of a change. I mean, a lot of people talk about body image issues and whatnot in females, but I think it very much is a massive issue for guys as well. And that's something that I've learned on this journey too.
Sure.
It's a real big thing for guys. So these are the new designs for the rhythm range. So we've got Bluto, Violet Humble, cotton candy, a Merlot mint, Passiona, and the other one is tulip tang. So all quite interesting names, and I guess they obviously all reflect the colors that you see. Again, a big contrast to what we did in our first range, but the one thing that we've kept with Smithers is our signature stripe. So you'll see a lot of these stripes, whether they're diagonal, vertical, horizontal, or in different variations. That's kind of like the Smithers signature is the stripes. Just so you know, Smithers will never do like some of our competitors will never do birds or floral or like cricket stumps and these wacky kind of tiger prints that you might see on some of our competitors. We're definitely not that. I think we're a bit more refined in that sense. And I think that talks to our target market as well. So we'll scroll down. So yeah, carousel, so people can sort of see, you know, the products then and there straight off the homepage. Although we've sort of hidden our previous collection, you know, you can obviously click through to that. But for right now, our focus is this range in particular. We also had a limited edition print that we did, which tied in with Sydney Mardi Gras, which is a huge celebration. It's not like Mardi Gras in America. It's the gay and lesbian, I guess, version of Pride as you guys might have in the States or somewhere else around the world. So we did that, and I just created I guess, let's call it a tile, if you like, that really kind of highlighted the fact that we have a limited edition print. And our story here. So that obviously is like our About Us page. And I think as you'll see, you know, sort of scrolling through the website, there is consistency between our images. That aesthetic is sort of staying clean. The yellows here in some of this image you'll see is kind of links here with our top menu bar at the top with that message. So, you know, it is very much, we are big on consistency. And I think that's a huge thing, even through our social media as well. Everything ties in well together. So scrolling on further down, we have the gallery. So just a few sample pictures, you know, a bit of a teaser. I mean, people can click through if they like through to the gallery, but I think this is a good opportunity here to sort of showcase our products again, not just as, you know, standalone images without anybody in them with the product itself, but a bit more of lifestyle you're seeing now. So again, you know, different prints in each of these pictures, you know, fishing, relaxing, sunbaking, you know, whatever. The Sydney's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's sort of selling the whole lifestyle here in Australia, which I think we do pretty well. Scrolling further down. So our Instagram, these are like the top, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pictures that we've posted on Instagram. And if you actually click through to our Instagram eventually at smithers.swimwear, you'll see we have like what we call puzzles. So you might see a specific tile here, like just his face, for example, but a previous picture, there's more to it. So he's actually holding a bag with our swimwear in there, and we talk about that. So everything kind of has a pattern and a puzzle in it, and it ties in together. So it may look out of place here, but the intent is for people to sort of click through and think, okay, well, you know, what else is on their Instagram? It looks like there's something happening here between these two. Looks like there could be a third one on the way. Check that out.
So like really curiosity playing on that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And again, you know, swimwear is obviously very, very, very visual. So we have to be very strong on our photos and the imagery that we use and the location. So again, it's not just the product, but you're sort of selling a lifestyle. And we're in Australia, right? We have some of the best beaches in the world. So we really have to play up to that. And I think we do that quite well, but I'll leave that for you guys to decide. I don't know if you want to play this video, but again, it's you know, it's variation of content. So links through to YouTube, and again, like the colors behind, you know, our thumbnail here obviously ties in with a lot of the colors that you've already seen up here through our products, which I think is quite important.
And it's very clear already that from. Sorry, go ahead. That this looks like there's more. Keep going.
Well, yeah, just flow on through. So again, we come down to our journal, which we haven't called a blog. We've
Nice.
called it a
Okay.
journal. Again, we try to, again, think a little bit more refined and who's our audience and would they prefer to read, a journal or a blog. So bearing in mind, we're doing this all for our audience and trying to serve up this content. Again, like I said earlier in the podcast, it's important to not just sort of be selling products, but, people are on their phone, they're reading more, they're spending more time. So, let's share some of the best beaches here in Sydney. Let's offer more than just a product. We've done an interview with the Speedo movement, which is actually quite interesting, a lot about body image and things in there. And then again, we've touched on our limited edition Synergy print. So there's a flow to the website. I'm really proud of it. I've sort of built this from scratch, not knowing a hell of a lot coming into Shopify and web design. So I'm pretty proud of it. The
I mean, you
standard sort
should
of,
be. I think you've done a wonderful job.
yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. It's been a lot of hours, a lot of time behind here with coding and teaching myself and YouTube tutorials. So yeah, I think
So hang
I've done
on,
all
are
right.
you saying you coded this yourself?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's right. So
Jay,
I found,
wow. I mean, do you have a coding
yeah,
background?
not at all, not at all. So
Oh man,
I,
this
I
is this looks professional. Like this looks like you paid a lot of money to get this done. I mean, honestly, I'm just gonna
thank
because
you.
I
I'll
mean,
take it.
I'm a coder, and I would say that I mean, I haven't looked at the code, but I can see the result. It looks excellent.
Yeah, sure. I mean, let's to be honest, like I bought a template obviously, but then I've just customized a lot of different things and added a lot more sort of funky stuff. So and it's been fun, and I think that's part of the entrepreneurial journey as well. Like I said, we all wear 50 different hats, and I think being web design or social media or whatnot or content creator, marketer, it's all part of it, right? And I really love it. I've loved every aspect of it, especially this sort of creative outlet, if you like.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a big part of your success with this design, quote unquote, is that I think even throughout this entire podcast, you really come across as being somebody who really understands your audience. So I mean, yes, it's part of self-expression, which seems to be the case here, right? But you're also really clear about what you want. And I think where things get muddled up is when you don't have that consistency. So perhaps that was like a very nice North Star that you had when, yes, maybe you took this theme and you took a piece from here and a piece from there, but it doesn't come across like that because you have this very clear idea of what you wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's, I spent a lot of time coming up with these designs and really sort of having a solid understanding of who I wanted to market to and who I really wanted to appeal to. And it comes out in so many different ways, in the language and, in some of the blogs that we talk about. It's
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot to think about, and it's a really holistic sort of understanding of, who my audience is. And, another example is the gentleman's club, right? Like,
Right.
again, aiming or trying to appeal to that sort of mature male audience, as opposed to sign up to our e-newsletter or whatever, which is completely fine. But, it's about reading the room. And in our room, there's a lot of sort of more gentleman-like people. So, that's something important for us.
And the other thing that really jumped out at me is that scrolling through your website, I'd say something like, I don't know, 20% of the real estate, maybe less, is dedicated to your products. And more of it is related to the content and getting people to know who you are, the brand. And I mean, it's very nice because it's literally an example of walking like the talk, right? Like we talked about this a lot, and before we jumped in by saying it's not all about the sale, it's about building that brand. And I hope everyone listening in can already make that it's not that you need to do exactly what Jake's done with his website, because it's very clearly to his audience. But what he's done very well is being very honest with what he wanted to achieve. So yes, if you say that it's not all about the sale and it's also about getting people to know about my brand and about Sydney, then make your website reflect that.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Like you really have to follow through with what your intentions are. And I'll be honest with you, when I first, obviously created the collection and the range for Smithers, all I wanted to do was get sales out the door and ship off product and whatnot. But I think you start to learn that, this is a massive beast. Like a business there is so much to it. I mean, and this is what you have to have fun with. This is what I'm saying. Like it's a labor of love. It's something that you really devote yourself to. And I've spent an awful lot of time on this stuff. But if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't be doing it. So really commit and know that you're going to have some really tough days and days where you're going to have like writer's block and whatnot. That's perfectly okay. That's perfectly okay. That's going to come.
Let's go into the sales bit, right? I think everyone. I mean, in the end, you're building a business. You need to sell, right? So maybe let's go through like a very quick view of what that buying experience looks like. So maybe let's click through a product and just let's just.
Sure.
I'd love the audience to see what their experience is like.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's go.
Because so, for instance, one question I had in my mind is that. You clearly, or maybe I'll ask you this later. Go ahead.
Okay, so another difference to when I first set out creating Smithers. One thing you'll notice through the website is I actually have a human being wearing the costumes, wearing the speedos, if you like, now in our latest range, which is something that I didn't do before. And that was feedback that came, and a lot of people were saying, your stuff looks amazing. These flat lay images are great. But what does it look like on? How does it sort of fit around a body? And again, everybody's shapes and sizes is different. You can have a small, medium, or large, but you can have 4 different variations of someone who's a medium, right? They can be tall, short, wide, thin. It's very hard to please everyone. So I have this time around, I've gotten a person to model a swimwear, a friend of mine. So I took these shots at his place, and we tried to show off the swimwear and I guess a bit of a 360 view. So we do have videos as well, and that's maybe something that I will add here for the full sort of customer experience, so they can see. It's basically just a twirl. That's all it is him doing. But again, it's that variation of content, and it might keep somebody on your site for that little bit longer.
And on this image, I think a really interesting point I recently learned is that it's usually a good idea not to show the person's face, because as human beings, the eyes directly go look at the person's face and not the product. Is that sort of what you were going for here? I didn't know that. I recently read about it.
Yeah, correct. I think people tend to have an immediate connection with someone. I don't know if it's about the eyes or whatnot or what it is, but I think, and for his privacy too, like we just sort of, this is something that I don't want people to. Okay, I'll be honest with you. Swimwear, the nature of swimwear is sexy enough in itself. So one massive thing for Smithers is to absolutely not over sexualize the product. And I think a lot of our competitors do that, and that's their niche, and that's what they do, and that's fantastic for them. But this was part of the opportunity, and I guess a gap that I saw for Smithers was having this product, which it's men's swimwear. It's not board shorts or swim trunks, as they might call them in North America. It's Speedo, and it's okay to have images and things like this. Without sort of sexualizing the product. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally with you. Let's keep going.
So again, you might also like, so these are just, again, the same products from the same collection. So the rhythm range, these are all the same images, but I'll click through to all the swimwear. I'll go back to the homepage so you can see some of the other swimwear.
So this was really my question. Do you have any analytics that you use to see if, so just going back a little bit, essentially your homepage is featuring your current collection, but we just talked about how you've got a lot of different collections, like from, seasons past. How much do you see do people get lost and they're thinking, hey, I saw this swimwear 2 months ago, I really want to get it now? Or is the audience like modern enough, or like digital savvy enough to think, oh, view all, that should be where I need to go?
Yeah, you know what? That's actually a really great question, and I think people, okay, one thing that I've probably noticed as well is I put a lot of story and a lot of I tie everything together behind each particular range. So, the foundations range was my first range that I did, and I've named each of these pieces after a quality or a virtue in what I think makes up the modern day gentleman. So empathetic, loyal, modest, respectful, integrity, gratitude. So there's 6 in total that these characteristics, and I've named each design after that. So I have a really big backstory, and I really like to sort of play that up. But it means so much to me because I did it. But a lot of people just go off the visual. They see something that they like, and they like it because of the color or the design or the shape or whatnot. And that's completely fine. But then you have some of your, I guess, my better customers or my loyal customers or, VIP sort of customers or whatnot, who really resonate with the story, or, they might buy something because, they want to collect them all, which has happened multiple times. So they understand the difference. And I think it's probably easy for those guys to navigate their way around the site between the collections. But to your point, when you do go view all, it takes you to the page where you're seeing everything. Whereas the top navigation bar kind of spills out into these 3 different, I guess, subsections.
Right.
People don't know. Some people who, like I said, might be visiting the site for the very first time now, but Foundations was created, sort of 2 years ago, but people are still buying that. And that's where the analytics comes from. It comes through in the sales. Wow, people are still really interested in the Foundations range, but because as the business owner, I've seen it 1,000 times. Like it's older to me, it has a shelf life in my mind, but people are only seeing this for the very first time. And I think that's probably the feedback that I'm getting is through sales to say, wow, like people are still interested in this because they're seeing it for the first time.
Yeah. I mean, so when you think about it, how many products do you currently have right now with the new collection?
Okay, so I have 6 new products. I'll just bring them up.
So I mean, the total number of products that you have on the site.
So the total number of products is 18.
Okay.
18 products, but some have multiple color variations or whatnot.
So I guess it seems like as you build more and more collections, you have this sense that you need to play this very delicate balancing act between featuring the most latest one, which you clearly are very proud of, and that's your new thing. But then you have people coming in who still identify with maybe what you did previously and maybe would like to buy that. I guess it's not such a big issue right now, but is that like, how are you thinking about this from a design perspective?
Yeah, of course. So I guess, I look at some other websites and they might have the 2020 range or the 2018 range or 2016 range. And I think what I've thought to myself is, knowing what I know now and knowing that people are still interested in a previous collection, but it doesn't have a date there. So, if I had have had the 2018 Foundations range, people might see that and be deterred by that because they think, oh, well, that's old or that's yesterday's news or whatnot. So I purposely haven't put a date next to anything. I mean, they'll find out by reading the journal or through blogs or whatnot, or scrolling back through social media. They'll be able to tell, when it first came to life. But in terms of the experience for the website, I purposely have omitted all the dates from when these things were released. And
okay, that's fine.
You can sort of see how there's images of the body. These ones with the model wearing the products, that's one collection. And I kind of hope people are able to sort of make the connection there.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, it looks out of place. That's the lack of consistency. And it really annoys me because I get really I have a perfection sort of personality. So I want them all to look identical. But I stopped to realize, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to experiment with this. And I sort of want people to be able to recognize, okay, well, that belongs to that collection. Whereas the ones that are just flat lays they belong to a different collection. So I hope that's what people pick up. Whether they do or they don't, I don't know. So maybe in my mind, I'm already starting to think I'm probably going to make all these images flat lays, just to keep it consistent, because it does. I mean, so if
I
I
can
was
tell
to
it's
look at
really
the
bugging
website, I
you.
go, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But for now, it's fine.
I'm curious. I don't know if you've got that gallery around to show us of what the website looked like before. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll show you. I'll show you some of the images from our previous. So you can sort of see the aesthetic here. I mean, looking at this gentleman wearing our Smithers here. So this shoot was actually in Los Angeles, and as you can see, I mean, the age of this guy is, that is around 40 odd, which is obviously very different to this guy here who's a lot younger. But I guess I'm trying to keep that same sort of vibe. It's a younger
Right.
sort of modern day gentleman versus probably a gentleman that's in his prime here. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
this
So
sort of
now,
aesthetic.
what I'm curious about is that do you have any images of what the website itself looked like at the time? That would be pretty cool. If not, that's fine. I'm just very curious. Maybe you can just talk us through it then, because clearly here you were aiming for an older sort of audience. So what maybe you can
Yeah,
just help us visualize what the website looked like then and now how it's changed.
much more washed out, like these sort of muted, desaturated
Mm.
images.
Hmm.
So that's obviously a different model here as well
Hmm.
to Ryan up here. Um, I guess the biggest thing is, again, you look in the colors of some of the designs, like and I mean the product itself. So the
Hmm.
website matched these colors here. So a
Mm.
lot of the images that I would put, for example, on social media would match these colors. And now it's a lot more poppier. The colors are a little bit more brighter and bolder, and somewhat more, I guess, daring for Smithers. We probably experimented a bit more by going with these brighter colors. But I think the
Mm.
best example you might see is probably from Instagram. If it will open, it might not. I'm just trying to show you. I guess it's not going to do it. I could
You
log
had
in.
added this new thing now.
I don't think this will work, but
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think I was just curious there because, but at least even from the images, it's pretty clear. But like for me now, the interesting question is: you started off with this set of assumptions, and
yep,
clearly the aesthetic was different, and now it's
yep.
younger, more vibrant. What precipitated that? Like what made you change? Was it feedback you were getting? Did you find that more younger people were buying it, so you had to adapt? Was it the social media? I mean, that's the question now in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a combination of all those things you just mentioned. I think it's a lot of the feedback and from friends and family and whatnot. And I think, I'm 30 years old, so I'm probably closer to that younger end of the scale of my target market. And I think
Hmm.
I was probably hearing a lot of noise from that particular end of the scale, but also seeing people wearing it. So people sharing their images and stuff online through user generated content, and what we're being tagged in on Instagram. I'm seeing the age a lot younger than what I had set out for,
Hmm.
um, and sort of people saying, oh, it's more aspirational, seeing the guy in the initial range, being that little bit older, but people, I think, wanted something a little bit more here and now. And I say this, that we took a bit of a punt by doing this sort of louder and prouder and more vibrant range. So the next range that we're developing is probably somewhere more in the middle.
Hmm.
And this is what you'll learn over time. Your audience is going to change, and you can't please everyone. And the
Hmm.
original muse that I set out for changed for my second range. But for this third range that's going to come out, I'm starting to go back to that, because, like I said, people are seeing things for the first time, and they really resonated with it. So a lot of the conversations that I'm having with people online, there's so many different ages, but they're all, the commonality or the common denominator is they really appreciate stuff, good product, good quality, and Australian made sort of things. And that's the key for us. So continuing to experiment. It did frighten me initially, but I think you just have to take it in your stride and constantly learn from it.
See, I mean, you mentioned experimenting, and then you also mentioned quite a bit that you talk to your customers a lot and via DMs and being very responsive to customer support. It seems to me like these two concepts go hand in hand. You don't want to be experimenting in the blind, but you also need to be listening to your customers. So it seems like they're very there's a lot of synergy there. For people just listening in and thinking, gee, this sounds like a really good idea, I really do need to be doing more of this. What have you found to be the most effective channel to hear what your customers are saying, or really to understand your customers? Because right now you're doing a lot of things, but say, for someone who's just thinking about it now, like, what have you found to be the most effective?
In terms of sales,
In
I
terms
think I
of
generate.
understanding your customer so that you get an idea of what they want so that you can adapt and experiment.
Yeah, okay. I definitely say probably Instagram first
Okay.
and foremost is where a lot of the conversation is had.
Right.
So we probably devote most of our attention to Instagram being, like a visual sort of product, and I guess the lifestyle that we're sort of selling. That's probably the medium that drives the most conversation for us, and
So I
it's
guess
quite amazing.
I'm trying to just package that into sort of like a more generic advice for everyone. It sounds like you picked Instagram because your whole brand is very visual. So that turned out to be the medium where I guess the feedback you wanted was also visual. So perhaps maybe if it's a very different type of product, that could be another medium which is perhaps more useful. Maybe there's more quality. But I guess the lesson learned here is that you were very comfortable with that initial medium that you knew is most aligned to what you wanted, right?
Yeah, of course. I think if I was doing recipes or a cookbook or something like that, then YouTube would obviously be the way to go.
Yeah.
Video would work much better there, but I'm still seeing a lot of the same people, for example, on Instagram, that the conversation we're still sort of taking over to Twitter as well, for example. So Twitter kind of opens up more of a free-flowing conversation, if you like, versus that sort of more digital where people are kind of constantly on the scroll. Whereas I think if you're going to Twitter, you're going there for a bigger purpose and to maybe chat and a bit more interactive, conversational level.
Mm-hmm. So I think we've learned quite a lot today, Jake, and I am very, very thankful to this conversation. It's very clear that you've started with an idea, you learned along the way, and it's very much like you've gotten more comfortable with it as an entrepreneur. So you're putting yourself out there more, and I'm very confident that people are going to find this very inspiring. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're most welcome. It's a pleasure.
All right.